On today's show, NBA Stock Watch Summer League Edition, where we take a look at the performances of players in Vegas Summer League and we decide whether we want to buy, sell, or hold their stock moving forward. We'll take a look at 6 names for your Houston Rockets, as well as 5 names of the other top rookies who performed in Summer League. Whose stock is on the rise, whose stock has fallen, and whose stock are we going to sit on and bide our time with for the time being? All that and more coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
The Houston Rockets select Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
You're getting somebody who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, somebody who's going to come in and compete from day one.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays, host of the State of the Rockets podcast, as well as the founder of ClutchCityControlRoom.com. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. Now, as always, appreciate you for listening to Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Be sure to go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I want you to tell me your opinions on the different NBA stock watch scenarios we're going to run through today, the different players we're going to talk about, both for your Houston Rockets as well as in segment 3. We're going to branch out and take a look at some of the other top rookies, and that's how we're going to do it. We're going to go in alphabetical order with your Houston Rockets, though. So starting us off on our NBA Stock Watch endeavors. Now, first off, if you've never played NBA Stock Watch with us, this is how it works, right? We list a topic or a player or whatever, and you decide whether you want to buy that stock, whether you want to sell that stock, or whether you want to hold that stock. So you can play along with us as we're naming these names and kind of going through the list here. So we'll start with Daishen, going in alphabetical order based on first names, because I wasn't going to do last names. So let's start with Daishen and his Summer League performance. He averaged 13.4 points per contest, shot 45% from the floor, 45% from long range on 4 attempts per game. He had 3.6 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists, and 2.6 turnovers across 5 games in 27.5 minutes of play. I'm going to start off and not be super, divisive one way or the other. I'm going to hold on Daishen stock, right? We saw what he was capable of doing in the G League. He put up absurd numbers, and he's so far proven he is too good for the G League, right? He will learn nothing else by being sent down to the G League. We're past that with him in his career, right? Now the next step in his career is, can he translate some of that success to the NBA level? I wasn't blown away by his Summer League performance. And apart from the very first game in Summer League, out the gate, struggling against the Orlando Magic, it didn't really feel like he had a bad Summer League. It also didn't feel like he had a phenomenal Summer League. So I'm kind of up at about roughly the same spot that I was at with Daishen. So I am going to hold my Daishen stock right now. I'm not buying more of it, and I'm not selling any of it off yet. I'm still firmly in the camp that right now he is the backup point guard, the de facto backup point guard for the Houston Rockets, unless something, incredible happens over the rest of the offseason or in training camp this next year where TyTy Washington just absolutely beats him out for minutes. He's your guy. So I'm going to hold my Daishen stock for now. Next guy on our list that we have is Jabari Smith Jr., kind of the crown jewel of this Houston Rockets offseason. And this might seem like a no-brainer here, although there might be some people out there who would choose to hold or potentially sell their Jabari Smith Jr. stock. I'm going to buy more stock in Jabari Smith Jr. Look, as far as his Vegas Summer League performance is concerned, he was impressive. I think, the offense at times, right, the shooting percentages maybe left a little bit of something to be desired overall. But when you look at his numbers, the way that he finished Vegas Summer League, he averaged 14.5 points per game, basically, shot 37.7% from the floor, 25.9% from 3. So yeah, the efficiency, not the best in the world, right? but he was 6th in rebounds per game at 9.4 boards per contest. He had just under 2 assists, just over 2 turnovers per game, about a steal and a half, and about a block per half per game across his 5 games in Summer League. So I think overall what we saw to Jabari Smith Jr. was the fact that offensively, he displayed a few more things than we were expecting. The ability to put the ball on the floor a little bit, draw some fouls, get to the free throw line, create for his teammates a little bit, at least making the right reads offensively, making the right decisions offensively, the ability to maybe not push the ball in transition. Maybe that's not the right terminology for it, but being more comfortable in transition than I thought he would be. The handle definitely still needs work. It's not pretty yet. It's effective at times. It lets him get to the spots on the floor that he wants to get to. He definitely still needs to build upon what he's got in the bag right now offensively. But we saw some finishing around the rim. We saw him get to his mid-range. We saw him operating out of the elbows. We saw him hit a few threes here and there. Again, the efficiency, not where we'd like to see it, but I'm not overly worried about the shooting right now. And then where I'm buying more Jabari Smith Jr. stock is the defensive side of things, right? He looks like he's going to be a transformational defensive piece for this Houston Rockets team. In our last episode, and this could be me completely being off base here, but I think that he has a chance to be the most impactful and or best defender, however you want to label it, for the Houston Rockets this next season, just by virtue of stepping on the court at 6'11", the ability that he's going to be able to have to make an impact defensively for the Rockets. Not just on a one-on-one basis, right? If you're asking me who the best one-on-one defender is on the team, that, honor, that nod still probably goes towards Eric Gordon or Jae'Sean Tate, right? But as far as the most impactful defender on the team, I think Jabari Smith Jr. is going to cover a lot of ground this season. He's going to help Alperen Sengun considerably, being his, front court running mate alongside him in the 4 spot, while Alp's the new starting center for this Houston Rockets team. So that's where I'm more high on Jabari Smith Jr. than I was coming into Summer League, because I thought he was going to be a good defender. Now I think he has the chance to be a transformational defender, a guy who's competing for DPOY awards further down the line in his career. So I am buying as much Jabari Smith Jr. stock as I can get my hands on, right? If you're looking to sell some Jabari Smith Jr. stock, I want to buy it. Next guy on our list is Josh Christopher. And this was one that... Pardon me there. This was one there I went back and forth on quite a bit, actually, before settling on, I'm going to hold on Josh Christopher. And that may be a bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to hold. And I went back and forth on holding versus selling Josh Christopher stock. And it came razor-thin close. Because at the end of the day, we know that Josh Christopher is capable of going out there and scoring, right? That's what he does. He goes out there and he scores. And even though he went out there and averaged 19.7 points per game in Summer League, he did it on 39.6% shooting from the floor, 12.5% from long range. Those numbers are not going to cut it, right? If you're supposed to be, this lightning in a bottle, 6th man combo guard mentality off the bench, right? Just bona fide bucket getter scorer, you can't do it shooting 40% from the floor and 12.5% from 3. I know it's Summer League. His numbers were better than that when he did get consistent minutes this past season. But again, I was, I think the way that I kind of look at it, right, is, I might have been a little bit higher on Josh Christopher and his overall potential before Summer League. And I feel like a lot of people maybe feel that way at this point. So I'm not going to short him. I'm not going to sell his stock off right now, because I do still think he has an incredibly bright future. And maybe this is also part of just me expecting more out of him, right? I have such high hopes for his career and what he truly can become that maybe my level of scrutiny towards him and his gameplay is a little bit more strict or more of a narrow scope, trying to hone in on the things that he should be getting better at rather than just focusing on what he is as a player. And maybe that's unfair of me to be that critical of his game, but I want to see the best for him, right? I want to see him flourish and succeed. And I think he has all the tools to do it. Where I want to see growth from Josh Christopher, right? And I was hoping we would see this in Summer League, is him being a more impactful point of attack defender, and him being able to create for his teammates at a higher level because he knows how to break down a defense. He knows how to use his quick first step, his explosiveness to get past his defender and break down a defense. The next step is recognizing when he has those opportunities to then kick it out to the open man or just find the next guy in the offensive system to then swing the ball around, right? To then get it to whoever is open. So for Josh, those are the things that I'm going to be looking forward to seeing, the growth that I want to see out of him this next season. Just being more consistent, finding those reads within the offense, and then really becoming an impactful defensive player. And I think with so many other impactful, high-level defensive pieces around him, it's going to help him elevate his game on that side of the basketball, the desire, the drive to be impactful every single possession on defense, the way that we know he can be, right? And it's not for lack of trying. Even at times, one of my criticisms last season was that at times he was trying a little bit too much on defense, like checking Russell Westbrook all the way out like 40 feet away from the basket, which is not necessarily, that's not lack of effort, that's just lack of defensive IQ, unfortunately, because you don't want to give Russell Westbrook a driving lane and there's no need to check him beyond the three-point line. So things like that, right? Just his growth as a defender, the things that I'm looking for there. So with all that said, I will be holding my Josh Christopher stock for now. So coming up, Tari Eason, TyTy Washington, and one more member of your Houston Rockets. But first, a quick message from our friends over at BetOnline, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball, all the scores, all the odds, all the standings, everything for MLB. They've got you for UFC, MMA, boxing, all the fighting scores and odds, everything you need there. Golf, you name it, they've got it over at BetOnline. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. And right now, you can take a look over at BetOnline to see who the odds-on favorites are, to win the title next season in the NBA. Right now, the Milwaukee Bucks, the favorites at plus 600. The Boston Celtics at plus 625. The Golden State Warriors, not at the top of the pecking order as far as odds-on favorites at plus 650. So they're in third place. And then rounding out the top five, you got the LA Clippers at plus 700 and the Phoenix Suns at plus 750. So for all of that and more odds, head to their website today to learn more about the trends and action available to you. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Let's continue NBA Stock Watch Summer League edition. And again, continuing on here in alphabetical order. So up next, we've got NBA Summer League first team honoree, Tari Eason. How could you not want to buy more Tari Eason stock? He was arguably the best Rockets rookie in Vegas Summer League. When you look at his Summer League numbers, the way that he finished Vegas Summer League, let's take a look at these numbers right here. Wrong tab. Thank you, Google Chrome, for screwing me up. All right, here we go. 17.2 points per game on 44.7% shooting from the floor, 33.3% shooting from long range. He averaged 10.4 rebounds per game, leading all rebounders in Vegas Summer League, except for Taco Fall and Kofi Cockburn, who out-rebounded him just a skosh ahead of him, but they did not play all their games. So if you put the parameters as played more than 20 minutes per night, Tari Eason, number one rebounder in Vegas Summer League, was crashing the glass just fervently every single game that he was out there on the floor. 1.6 assists per contest, 1.6 turnovers, so a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Little under 2 steals per game and a block per contest in 27.5 minutes per game. Look, Tari was incredible. He was a revelation, right? I was incredibly high on Tari Eason coming into the draft. He was the guy that I absolutely wanted the Rockets to get at pick number 17. Made all the sense in the world, and it feels like they have revamped their defense overnight with the additions of Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. He showed his ability as a defender, both in one-on-one settings against, guys like Paolo Banchero, right? Calling for the isolation, just waving off Jabari Smith, saying, "Now I got this," right? Checking Paolo Banchero one-on-one on a few occasions. Playing passing lanes, getting in there and breaking up plays, solid man-to-man defense, fouling quite a bit at times, right? And that's going to be an adjustment for him at the NBA level, is learning how to be an aggressive defender, using his size, using his foot speed to stay in front of guys without reaching and fouling. And I think that's going to be kind of the biggest adjustment for him, is because he wants to be so aggressive. He wants to play for the steal. He wants to play for trying to, poke a ball loose and create, transition opportunities for his team. So defensively, matched, checked all the boxes that I was expecting and then some. And then just in transition, right? He was a beast in the transition, whether he was filling one of the lanes for one of his point guards or for whoever was already running the break, or if he was just running the break himself, ripping down a rebound and getting out in transition like a bat out of hell, just looking for an easy opportunity either for himself to finish at the rim on the other end or to create and kick it out to one of his teammates. So all in all, I was really pleased with what we saw out of him defensively and what we saw out of him in transition. I think the half court's going to take a little bit of work, right? When he's playing his game, right, kind of staying in his lane offensively, I think he's going to be fine. But there were times where he drove to the basket and things looked a little questionable. Some of the decision making, trying to do the right things, right? Trying to drive it in, break down the defense, kick the ball out to the right person, but kind of telegraphing some passes here and there, maybe being a little overly aggressive at times, trying to finish and not necessarily having the best of looks at the rim. Those are things that I'm not worried about him learning over time. He's a young kid. He's just trying to find his lane, trying to be aggressive on the court. You commend him for all the stuff that he did. So yes, I am buying Tari Eason stock. Next on our list, we've got TyTy Washington, who for the 29th overall pick, surprise, surprise, I'm going to buy more TyTy Washington stock. I probably could have just crammed all three of those guys in the very front of the podcast and just be like, look, buy, because they were that impressive for the Rockets, right? I feel like they're, maybe you look up and down at, some of the other draftees, some of the other players, within that first round, and you want to either hold their stock or you maybe want to sell their stock because they either underperformed or they just didn't quite meet expectations, or maybe you were expecting a little bit more, so you want to be kind of tentative on how hyped you are on them. But overall, I think TyTy Washington delivered on what we expected him to be able to do. He was a primary ball handler at times. He played off ball at times. He showed his ability to score the basketball. He showed his ability to break down the defense and to create for others. He showed, some chops on defense too, right? Checking the ball in transition, playing really up defensively, right? Getting into the grill of of the offensive player. Poking some balls loose here and there to create transition opportunities for his team, right? He's got active, quick hands defensively. So, I'm not expecting him to be, a day one, premier point of attack defender, but he's got some craftiness, right? He's got some smarts to his game. Again, I've consistently compared it to those CP3 isms to his game. He just has that little, feel for the game, that edge on both sides of the basketball that has me really high on his overall potential with this Houston Rockets team. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy my, TyTy Washington stock. And then when we look at his overall numbers for Summer League, I want to come back here and make sure I have his numbers pulled up in the right spot. Yeah, here we go. TyTy Washington across all of Summer League, he wound up averaging 9.4 points per contest. So didn't break double digits on the scoring, but shooting from the floor, he wound up shooting 37.5% from the floor, not the best. 30% from three, still not the best. Again, the efficiency is kind of, not quite to where you'd like it to be, but I didn't mind the shots and the attempts that he was getting. And then you look down the line at the rest of his numbers, 3.5 rebounds per contest, 3.8 assists per contest, just 1.4 turnovers. I do think that he did a really solid job taking care of the basketball, especially when he was the one facilitating and orchestrating the Rockets offense, basically when Daishen was on the bench. I thought TyTy did a pretty solid job of running sets, getting guys in spots to be successful, right? Taking care of the basketball, especially in transition. That's where it kind of really stood out to me, is that I thought Daishen was the better half court, playmaker, creator, right? Running sets in the half court, kind of slowing things down, that kind of thing. And then TyTy looked like he was a bit more fluid and a bit more comfortable at times in transition, just finding guys, right? Just getting the basketball and pushing the tempo immediately, getting to the center of the floor, running the break, looking for whoever's on the wings, right? And then trying to create something in transition. That's where I felt that he really thrived in Summer League, and seeing some of those breaks that he was on, finding the right man, kicking it out to the next guy. Those were exciting moments from TyTy Washington. Hopefully he has plenty of those moments moving forward with the Houston Rockets. So last guy here, and maybe this is unfair, but I'm going to do it anyways. Usman Garuba, who was supposed to participate in Summer League, unfortunately had the ankle injury, sidelined him, didn't wind up playing a lick of Summer League basketball. Maybe it's too early to do this, but I'm about, and again, just like Josh Christopher, I went really back and forth on this between wanting to hold or wanting to sell. I'm going to say sell for Usman Garuba, right? At this point, And here's my thing, right? I've said it before. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you should know by now, my favorite meal is crow. I love eating crow, right? If I'm wrong about stuff, I will walk it back immediately and say, hey, I was absolutely wrong about this. But the best ability is availability, right? For Usman Garuba. And hey, look, maybe this isn't like a, he's injury prone type thing. It hasn't been like injuries to the same spot of his body, right? He had the messed up wrist injury, then the ankle injury. Like, those aren't areas where you look at it and you think, oh, it's one recurring injury, right? It's not like a, recurring hamstring problem or something that's going to, be nagging him for his entire career. Now, foot injuries can become that. So maybe that is an area of concern, but we haven't seen the guy, right? And it does suck that he didn't get a chance last year because of the depth chart and then the injury and all these different factors that just kind of went against him last year. But to then be expected to participate in Summer League and showcase what we've all been wanting to see out of him, and yet another injury just kind of holding him back. It's tough, but that's just where we're at with him. So at this point, Usman Garuba's stock is pretty low. Maybe I should just hold on to it, right? Maybe it's not even worth selling at this point as far as stocks are concerned. But yeah, I'm going to sell Usman Garuba stock. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for him to get those direct backup minutes behind Alperen Sengun and be able to turn around and say, you know what, Jackson, I told you, shouldn't have counted me out, right? Like, that's what I would love. I'd love nothing more than to see that happen this next season, but I'm hesitant about whether or not that actually comes to fruition. So with that, those are the 6 Houston Rockets players I wanted to play stock watch with. Coming up, we're going to take a look at 5 of the other top rookies from this 2022 draft class, how they performed in Vegas Summer League, and whether or not we should buy, sell, or hold their stock moving forward. We're going to talk about that in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. The comments help a ton. It would mean the world to me if you go comment on the video. Now, let's navigate away from the Houston Rockets and take a look at 5 of the other top rookies from this 2022 draft class. And we will actually roll here. Do you want to go in reverse order? Yeah, we'll go in reverse order. We'll break it down. So we'll go starting with Indiana Pacers, Benedict Mathurin, first off on our NBA Stock Watch Summer 2022. And I'm going to hold the stock on Benedict Mathurin. And I say that because ultimately, first off, Benedict Mathurin he basically performed as expected for me, right? Like he didn't blow me away with his performance. He didn't come in, underperforming, didn't overperform, kind of about as expected in the 3 games that he wound up playing for the Indiana Pacers. He wound up only playing about 22 minutes per contest, which is much lower than what the Rockets rookies wound up playing. And across his game time played, he wound up averaging just under 20 points per contest, 19.3, shot 48.8% from the floor, 38.5% from 3. He wound up having just under 5 rebounds per game, a little over an assist per night. Just, some really solid all-around numbers, which is basically what I expected him to be able to do coming out. He's going to be kind of this almost like perfect, just plug and play 3-and-D, maybe underrated playmaker. And I think maybe that's the thing that's holding me back. I was hoping to maybe see a little bit more playmaking creation out of him in Summer League. Didn't really get to witness that, but he's going to slot into what Indiana wants to do beautifully, right? He's going to be able to play off ball beautifully, feeding off of Tyrese Halliburton. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm coming away with is he didn't do anything that completely jumped off the page at me. And he also he basically only had 1 bad game in Summer League. And, to be able to put up the numbers that he did across 3 solid games, maybe I would have liked to see a little bit more out of him, play games 4 and 5, that kind of thing. But overall, I'm going to hold the Benedict Mathurin stock right where it's at. Now, next on our list, we've got Jaden Ivey. And I really went back and forth on Jaden Ivey because I was pretty high on him going into the draft, right? I had him above Paolo Banchero on my draft board for the longest time. And then as we approached the draft, I kind of started realizing I wasn't giving, Paolo Banchero the same rope that I was giving Jaden Ivey as far as some of his deficiencies on the defensive side of the basketball, some of the shortcomings in his game overall. And unfortunately for Jaden Ivey, he had the ankle injury, 5 minutes into his second Summer League game, should be just fine, right? Nothing serious, but we only got to really watch him play 1 game. In that 1 game, though, dude was insane. Like, I mean, he had some of the most ridiculous finishes in that game. So had some highlight level passes. He had 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. It's really hard for me not to want to buy more Jaden Ivey stock, but we only got the one game. And so because of that, I regrettably have to hold on Jaden Ivey. I'm not going to sell on him, right? Because I'm incredibly high on his potential. I think the Pistons picking him up at number 5 was an insane steal. So I'm going to have to hold on the Jaden Ivey stock. I'd love to buy more of it, but right now, just not enough of a sample size in Summer League to be able to confidently say, yeah, give me more of that stock. So sorry, Jaden Ivey. Sorry, Pistons fans. I wish I could do more. I want to do more, but I can't right now. Let's go Keegan Murray for the Sacramento Kings, the 4th overall selection in the NBA draft. I think if you're looking at the Kings and what Keegan Murray was able to do, first off, he was the only rookie in the top 5 scorers of Summer League. And the other top 5 scorers were all sophomore guys. They were all guys who were returning right after an NBA season of action. Quentin Grimes, Trey Murphy III, Cam Thomas, Moses Moody, all guys with NBA experience. Keegan Murray was the only one on that list that had 0 NBA minutes logged, and yet he was up there. So if you remove all the second-year players, Keegan Murray led all the rookies in scoring, which is damn impressive at 23.3 points per game. He also played in the California Classic, so he got plenty of burn across 2 different Summer League camps. Wound up shooting, from the floor, 50% from the floor, 40% from 3. He had, the insane 3-pointer to send the game to overtime against the Orlando Magic and Paolo Banchero. He wound up shooting a little under 81% from the free throw line, averaged 7.3 rebounds per contest, 2 assists per game, 2.5 turnovers, 1 steal, pretty much no blocks. Keegan Murray looks polished, right? He looks like the kind of guy that you'd expect to have all that collegiate experience under his belt. He comes in one of the oldest rookies, if not the oldest rookie in the draft class, right? I think 23 years of age, right? Somewhere around there. So because of that, right? Because he is older, more matured, you kind of expect him to have a more polished game, to have that poise, that composure about him. And he absolutely does. So maybe holding him to the same, level of scrutiny as the other rookies is unfair because he's not a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid like some of these other ones. But that said, you still give him credit, right? He put on an insane performance in Summer League. And I think the Kings are going to hopefully be able to look back on this draft and think, yeah, they're not going to get, ridiculed for not picking Jaden Ivey at number 4. I think Jaden Ivey's going to have an impressive career, and I think Keegan Murray's going to have an impressive career. And I really like Keegan Murray's fit in Sacramento, and I feel really excited about the possibility of what they're going to put together over there. Shout out to Monty McNair. Hopefully he got his guy in Keegan Murray, somebody that can help start finally turning that Sacramento Kings franchise around. So I'm going to buy the Keegan Murray stock. I love having a little cough button over here on my new soundboard. It's so much fun. So with that, we got 2 more guys to talk about here because we're going to skip over Jabari at number 3. So that brings us to Chet Holmgren, the number 2 overall pick in this past year's draft. And I've got to buy the Chet Holmgren stock. I think that he looks as good as projected. I think that when you look at the numbers that he wound up putting up in Summer League, maybe the offensive side left a little bit to be desired, but defensively, he matches every projection that he's going to be a dominant defensive force. And then the efficiency offensively, even though the numbers aren't exploding off the page, the efficiency was really, really good. So let's run through Chet Holmgren's numbers really quick. 12 points per game on 46.4 shooting from the floor, 42% shooting from long range, 87.5% at the free throw line. He wound up averaging 7.7 rebounds per contest, 2.3 assists, 3.3 steals, 2.3 blocks. The defensive numbers are there, right? The defensive counting stats are all there. Chet looked really good. He looked really good in every game that I got to watch him play. And I think he's going to slot into what the Thunder are trying to do, and he's going to work really, really well. He's going to be that intimidating defensive factor. And then offensively, he's going to be a nice ancillary piece, right? He's not going to command the basketball. He's not going to take touches away from Josh Giddey or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going to play off of those guys incredibly well. And for the most part, the frame, the physicality of the game didn't seem to bother him one bit, right? He didn't seem like he was getting ragdolled around out there. He was imposing his will on the games, especially from the defensive side of the basketball. So I've got to buy the Chet Holmgren stock, right? Like, I was hesitant before the draft. If you had asked me before the draft, am I buying Chet Holmgren stock? I would have been very, risk averse with that. But he's proven me wrong already. And again, it's just summer league, so you take it with a grain of salt. But I liked what I saw out of Chet Holmgren. I think the OKC Thunder got exactly what they were hoping to get out of that guy at pick number 2. Which brings us to our final guy here. The prodigal son, the would-be Houston Rocket, Paolo Banchero, the guy that we thought was going to fall to Houston at pick number 3, the guy that I had kind of worked myself up towards because I thought he was going to be a Houston Rocket. A lot of people thought he was going to be a Houston Rocket. So I started looking at his game and trying to make peace with what he was going to bring to the table for the Rockets. First off, I'm going to say I think Paolo Banchero is still going to be a talented, phenomenal player. I'm not trying to slight him, but I'm going to sell that Paolo Banchero stock because what I saw in Summer League was exactly the kind of thing that I was going to be concerned about and why I had him lowest on my draft board. And again, this isn't a fresh thing. I'm going to get some Orlando Magic fans in my mentions who are saying this is cope for missing out on Paolo Banchero. No, I was lowest on Paolo Banchero throughout most of the pre-draft process, started warming up to him a little bit as we got closer to the draft, had him kind of on the same tier as Jaden Ivey. I still had Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren ahead of them. But I was resigned to the Rockets getting Paolo Banchero, and I was going to appreciate him for what he brought to the table, right? An offensive engine, somebody you can put the ball in his hands, and he's going to go manufacture a bucket, right? Either for himself or create something for somebody else on the team. His court vision is insane. He's got great feel for the game, a great feel for facilitating for his teammates. The offense can very clearly run through him at a high level. That said, my biggest concern with him was the efficiency side of things, right? Is he going to be an inefficient big man? Like, what's going to happen when his shot isn't falling? What does he give you when his shot isn't falling? You can probably still rely on his playmaking, but like, how much more are you getting out of him if you're not getting, if the shot's not going in? Are you just effectively relying on him as a playmaker and that's it? What can he give you defensively? What's he going to give you in the rebounding department, right? What else does he bring to the game as far as intangibles go? All this stuff. In his 2 games in Summer League that he played, the passing was solid, right? He had 6 assists in both of his outings. The efficiency left something to be desired. I'm sorry. Like, you look at his very first game against the Houston Rockets, he was 2 of 3 from long range, but he was just 3 of 9 inside the arc. He was 5 of 5 at the charity stripe, though. He drew some fouls, got to the free throw line, so it was solid. It was not the best, most efficient 17-point outing for him, but he did his job, and the Orlando Magic won the game. And then you go to his second game, right? The only other game that he played in Summer League, the nail-biter against the Sacramento Kings and Keegan Murray. Banchero put up 23 points, but it took him 15 shots to get there. He made it to the free throw line 15 times where he hit 11 of 15, so he can draw fouls, and that's going to help him as far as his efficiency is concerned. But looking at the actual numbers, 6 of 15 shooting from the floor, so 6 of 14 inside the three-point line, I worry that at the end of the day, he's going to play like a bigger Carmelo Anthony. Like maybe that's the comp. And I don't know. At this point, I'm ecstatic with who the Rockets got in Jabari Smith Jr. He was always number 1 on my board. And I think the fit just is seamless here in Houston with Jabari and Jalen and KPJ and Alperen Sengun. I'm excited about their future together. I would have still been excited if Paolo Banchero was the Houston Rocket. I would have still been heavily concerned about the efficiency problems that I see in his game and that I see creeping and rearing their ugly head further down the line. So with that, I will respectfully be selling the Paolo Banchero stock. Again, these are the same concerns that I had going into the draft. And they're still the same concerns that I would have had even if he was a Houston Rocket, generating buckets, facilitating for his teammates. I would have had question marks about his defense, would have had question marks about, what he brings to the table when the shot isn't falling, all these things. So these are just the observations that I had going into the draft. And after 2 games in Summer League, that's kind of what I saw out of Paolo Banchero. The talent is there. Maybe it coalesces for Orlando, maybe it doesn't. But with that, those are final thoughts on NBA Stock Watch 2022. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. I read every single comment every single day. But as always, appreciate you for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Drop us some stars, leave a review. Would sincerely appreciate it. Check us out on YouTube. Again, search Locked on Rockets on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home. Your Bailey podcast home for everything Boston Buckets basketball. I am just going to end on that note. That was atrocious. Thanks for listening.